What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 5 of Mindset of a Champion. Today, I'm joined by Alex Lungu. Alex, man, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Hey man, I just want to say thank you for having me on the show, man. It's a great pleasure to be here and to talk to everyone and tell them a little bit about myself. And yeah, let's see what happens, man. I'm really glad to be speaking to you again and see you again.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So, why don't we start with that then? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right, so it's funny because I've never really been a fan of strength sport. I've always been very strong. I've always been involved in sport. I've never really been about strongman. In fact, I always looked at I see the guys on telly, but it's just never really interested me. It never really wasn't really a passion or just wasn't interested at all. And but I have to mention though, strength was always in my blood. One of my grandparents was an Olympic lifter. One of my other grandparents was known to be a great train puller. And it's funny because my parents used to always mention me that as a baby. I'd always like try to lift things, like heavy things off of like try and pick up stones, or I was always seen around like trying to pick up logs and sticks and whatever. I was only a baby, but my parents said that to me and mentioned it to me recently. It's funny. But I started off as a rugby player. I played rugby, which was awesome. I think that's where I started, and I knew I was always very physical, very active. I then moved on to boxing, kickboxing, done some karate, and then I finished off with cage fighting, which was amazing. I think that's what kind of like built me into the person I am today. That fighter mentality. Grafter. Because you have to graft every day and work your ass off. I had a very very tough coach who made sure we essentially turned into warriors. It was brilliant. And one day I met somebody who just said to me, "Well, why don't you give this a go?" And I thought, I don't know. I was just this again. Wasn't interested. Wasn't interested. And I remember there was a local comp. I think it was Farringdon Strongest Man, something like that, something local. Nothing well known or anything. It was something local, and it was like a first time as novice comp. And I thought, you know what, hell with it. I'll sign up anyway. I'm gonna sign up to it, train for a little bit, and we'll just see what happens from there. And well, I did just that. I remember going out on the day, and it's fair to say I got my ass handed to me. But you know what? Being there, and because the competition was set up in a massive field, and it was set up just outside like a concert, like an extravaganza, like a town day or something like that. There was always a lot of people around, and it was brilliant because everybody was cheering you on. All the athletes were very friendly. We were all supporting each other and cheering each other on, and I kind of developed the passion for lifting stuff up and putting it back down. It was amazing. It was brilliant, and I just got hooked ever since. I got hooked.
Awesome, man. No, I really like that because it does, as you say, differ a little bit from the norm of how people got into sports like strongman, because I think it almost feels like not that many people get into strongman on purpose. They can kind of fall into it, and there's almost like two categories. There's like the like yourself, the kind of Magnus Samuelsson character, who's very strong, inherently amazing
Sure.
genetics, was on a farm, didn't really know what the hell strongman was, and then all of a sudden started to compete and excel. Or there's like the Bill Kazmaier figure, who's like the elite athlete who track and field, all of that stuff, who naturally blends through strength sport by choice. So yeah, man, that's really interesting to see.
I was always. It's fair to say because I've always kind of been. I've been that character. I've always been active. I've always been kind of like heavily involved in sport because it was just what I wanted to do. I've always wanted to kind of be out and about, and it wasn't just for doing the sports side of things. It was just about for socializing, making friends, and meeting new people. And I think because I was so relaxed about it and I was so chilled and I was just doing it for fun, I think that's why I kind of like reached, good heights. I got like county level in rugby. I was had a few fights in the cage, and I was just having fun with it. And I think that's what made me kind of be a bit more successful than everyone else. Because so a lot of the guys I used to train rugby with, for them it was just a chore, because their parents were coaches or whatever. And for them it was more like a chore. Whereas for me, it was just like, man, it's gonna be fun, let's just have fun, and see where I end up and see where this goes. So I'm trying to do that with strongman at the moment. I'm trying to have fun. Of course, I feel like sometimes I take it very seriously. And a lot of times I kind of have to go back and remember why I started this sport, and it's because it's fun, and sometimes I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I think that's just natural because you want to become a professional athlete and you want to be the best of the best. You want to be the best of the bunch. And it's very easy to put pressure on yourself. But I've been trying not to do that. I've been trying to just let things go by and have fun, man, and enjoy every day and every session.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's interesting because, as you mentioned, when sport is organic and it feels natural, then it can be enjoyed massively, right? And the success goes hand in hand with that. Whereas when it starts to become more of an obligation and something you do, out of necessity, then it loses some of its charm and its excitement. So it's fascinating to hear how you kind of merge the fun and the passion side of it with the more grueling and disciplined side of it.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story now. I think I was just a few months in, maybe wasn't even a year, maybe 4, 5, 6 months or something into my strongman training. And I remember I signed up to London Strong. Yeah, it was London Strongest Man. That's what it was. And it was a nice comp. It was a big comp, decent crowd, very well run comp. And that's where I met Loz. That's where I met my coach, Laura Charlotte. And I done that comp, and I did all right. I came like fifth or something of like 22 guys. Again, this was a novice comp, and I just remember I sat down and I started crying because I started crying. I had tears in my eyes. I'm like, what the hell? Why am I not so good at this? Like, because I put so much pressure on myself. And I remember Lawrence coming up to me and tapping me on my shoulder. He's like, what's wrong, man? Why are you crying? I was like, leave me alone. I don't want to speak to nobody. I'm ashamed. Look at me. But, I ended up like that because I put so much pressure on myself. And again, I think it's funny because I think it's almost natural for me because I want to be successful. When I do something, I don't just do it just for fun or just for the jokes of it. I want to be successful. I want to do it, and I want to become good at it. I want to become the best at it. I'm hungry. I want to be the best, and I think it's just natural to put pressure on myself.
Right. And it's interesting kind of with regards to how you described your route into strongman, something that was, something you didn't expect to find yourself in. And when you started to realize that it could be something enjoyable and people were watching and, celebrating what you were doing, that's where you started to feel somewhat of the drive to go through that a little bit more, right? So there's almost this kind of oxymoronic scenario of enjoying something and not taking it so seriously and kind of just doing it for the sake of it, but also this intense drive, this need to be the best, to be successful, to be at the top of the hill, right? Which I think is a very interesting perspective. And would you then say that you fuse those two things?
Well, you know what's funny? Because man, I'm a sore loser. I hate losing. I absolutely hate losing. I remember one time it was just a friends gathering, and they had a ping pong table, table tennis. And this guy, I started playing him, and he beat me, and he beat me really badly. And it was only funny. It was only supposed to be fun. But what then I'd done, I went to see a couple of other friends, and I started practicing daily. I started practicing like daily and get better and better until I beat him. And then when I beat him, I felt so proud. I had to go back and beat him. This is my this was my mentality, and this still is my mentality. I'm a very bad sore loser. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna if you beat me, I'm gonna go back, learn what I need to learn, and I'll come back and I'll kick your ass. But listen, I think it's brilliant having this mentality, and I think it will make you work a lot harder. But the only downside of it is the fact that you always end up putting pressure on yourself, unnecessary pressure, which can sometimes, if you don't know how to deal with it, it will bury you down into the ground.
Right. So there's almost like this kind of counterbalance of scales. On one hand, you have the need to be competitive, and even that little bit of pride that pushes you to want to one up other competitors, or make sure that you're the one standing on top, right? But then the need and the expectation to fulfill that and make it a reality, because inevitably that isn't always going to be the case, as you described when you came fifth and you didn't overcome everyone who was there and
I was
didn't have a
crying so
perfect
bad. I was crying like a
performance.
little baby. And it was one of my first competitions. It was a novice comp, and nobody really cared. But I was sat down, and I remember my girlfriend hugging me, and she's like, "What's wrong with it?" I was like, "No, I came fifth. I'm not even on podium." And it's funny because ever since then, I kind of had this mentality of like, nobody cares who was second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever. Everybody remembers the person who won. Oh, who won the Champions League? You don't know, whatever. Everybody will know who won that. Everybody remembers the team who came on top. Everybody remembers the person who came on top and who won. You'll never be remembered for second, third places, fourth place, fifth. Nobody cares. So I always want to win. It's, like I said, I'm a sore loser and I hate losing, and I always like to come on top of things. And I suppose this is the hunger of being that up and coming person, being an up and coming athlete, and you want to get better every day.
Yeah, there's no points for second best, as my dad used to like to say. But in all honesty, man, that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on here and speak to you, because some of the people who I've had on before have been veterans of the game. They've won what they came to win. They've started to depart from the sport, and they were looking back in hindsight on how they approached their mindset when they were at their peak. However, for you, you are that hungry proverbial wolf now, climbing the hill, looking to leave a legacy and create your reputation, right? Um, and also you've had somewhat of a meteoric rise as well. As you say, this has only been 2 years of training, right?
Yeah, it's been just over 2 years of training, and I don't regret starting the sport. I absolutely love it, and it's not been easy. Of course, it's not been easy. There've always been barriers and things getting in the way, because as an athlete, you got a life outside of training as well, and like myself, I have to work and help my family out. I have to study. I'm in my last year uni, and I have to study as well, and of course training as well on top of that. And sometimes you look at it and it's like there's not enough hours in the day to do everything I do, and that's when it becomes a nightmare. And I think that's when the lockdown hit, and it was terrible because I think it hit a lot of us hard because, as mentioned before, I think people are used to having that autonomy. People are used to having that same routine every day, and then people seem to be resilient to change. People hate change, and I myself, I hate change sometimes. And when the lockdown hit and I was out of routine, it broke me. It really did.
Right, and especially given that for everyone, for every athlete, momentum is integral to continued success, right? And especially, it would seem from your perspective, someone who has risen quite quickly through the sport, who has, grand goals and aspirations, you've got a lot of momentum. But then once that lockdown happens and personal life starts to get in the way, that momentum inevitably grinds to a halt. And as you say, that autonomy that you treasure and that you rely on to feel safe and feel capable of moving forward is taken away from you.
It's funny because after competing at Europe's, and I there was a lot of fuel on the fire. I knew what I had to do. My coach and I sat down and we had a battle plan, and we knew what he's doing, and we'd set out a plan of what he's doing to take us to the next level and get better and better and better and improve each and every weakness. And soon after that, I picked up a little injury, possibly a QL injury, a little tear. Nothing major, but it's just something. It hindered me. It stopped me deadlifting. I couldn't train for a little while because of it. And it was mentally draining because I felt like you said, I felt like I had that momentum. I felt like I was really on the rise and on the up, and everything was going so perfect. And it really knocked me down. It really knocked me down, and it knocked down my confidence. I didn't really want to train, because I could still train. I could still do other things. I just couldn't really deadlift and do anything like stones or yokes or what. I could still squat, I could still bench, I could still overhead, but it really knocked the confidence out of me, and I didn't really want to train. It just knocked it out of me. I didn't want to do anything, and it took me a little while to get out of that dark space. It took me a little while to get out of that dark spot, but I think having a good team around me, my coach Laurent Chalet is brilliant, because his CV, his experience just says it all. He's been in the sport for 20 years or so. He's brilliant, and he really pulled me out of some really, really dark places. And he let me sulk for a couple of days. He let me sulk. He let me have my little cry, and then he's like, "Right, we need to get on with it now. Get off your ass and let's start again. Let's build again." And I think the one thing that really helped me out is setting goals for every day. I have my big ultimate goal on the wall, and then I have a little calendar underneath with little mini goals, for each and every day. I mean, nothing crazy. Things like make sure you eat all your meals, or make sure you do your stretching in the morning, make sure you do your cardio, make sure you do your conditioning. Little things like that that will ultimately take me to that next level. That will ultimately take me closer to my goal. To my main goal, to the ultimate goal.
Right. So, I mean, firstly, when you experienced that injury, right, and you experienced the shock and that abrupt hitting of the wall that was lockdown, right? It's interesting that you mentioned that Big Loz kind of he gave you a little bit of time to
Oh, he lets me
process
solve.
what you were going
I'm I'm
through.
I'm an emotional guy. I'm a really emotional guy. I think a lot of these strongmen. I think a lot of the guys are emotional, but I reckon I top the list. I'm the most emotional guy ever. And yeah, he had to leave. He had to give me time. He had to let me solve for a couple of days. And yeah, then he gave me a kick up. And I was like, "Come on, get on with it. Let's go."
So you had that time to kind of observe in real time what had actually happened to you and where you were now, especially given that you'd previously been on this massive high of energy and momentum, and then once that fallout, that emotional trauma had been, validated and allowed to exist, right? Because too often, it's repressed and pushed to one side so that you can proceed.
Sure.
You then started to stand up again and move forward with the help of this fantastic team around you, with it would seem, very positive energy, very supportive from what you're saying.
That's for sure. Because if it wasn't for the guys around me, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I would like to give them a special shout out. Big shout out to my coach Lawrence Charlet. Big shout out to Ellis Vine for sorting out my diet. Big shout out for Williamson chiropractor, who's been helping me out and fixing my body up. And I got a couple of other guys. My supplements being met by the guys at Fit Cookie. Check them out if you haven't already. I've got a good team around me, and they don't just provide me a service. They're more than that to me. They're like a family. They're like a family to me, and having them around me really has been great, because I was really on the rise, man. I feel brilliant. It started off. It's funny because actually the whole process started off badly. I was at Southerns. I did really bad. I had a tough year, but I've done really, really bad. Didn't do great at all, and I then went on to unofficially break the Romanian log press record at 181 kilograms. And, that pushed me even further, because I'm so motivated now. I'm so motivated to do great, to actually work hard. And I was working my ass off. And then, of course, then I got a call to Europe's Strongest Man a few days prior to the show. So, I went in with no expectations. I went in with no pressure. I went in, I just went there to enjoy it, really. I went there to enjoy and have fun with it. And then I made my record official at Europe's Strongest Man. Then after Europe's, like I said before, like I mentioned it before, we made a plan with Loz, and we knew what we had to do and what needed improvement. And I was really making improvements on those weaknesses, on the things that let me down. And, the deadlifts, I was going up in the 300s now. I was going 300 plus. And when all that gets taken away from you, mate, it's horrible. You get in a really, really dark place. And, it got to the point for me where, when you lose the passion to breathe and to breathe fresh air, you're in a really, really bad place. You really are. And my team put me out some really dark places, because I say it really knocked it a lot out of me. It knocked it really, really heavily out of me, because I just felt like, even though I could do things, and I knew mentally I could do things, I could still train other things and train around the injury. In my mind, I was like, oh my God, I say I'm hindered now. I can't do anything. I can't progress. And I think that's why when Laws allowed me a few days to sulk and have my cry and see what's going on, and actually realize I can still train, I can still make improvements. It was then easy for him to just kick me in the bum and say, right, let's get on with it.
Yeah, that actually, that last point that you made, that's why I drew some attention to that in particular when you mentioned it the first time round, which is that, you'd experienced something that was traumatic and difficult to address for anyone. You've had something that you love and that you committed a huge amount of time and energy and effort to, taken away from you, albeit potentially temporarily with lockdown and with injury. But nonetheless, it represents a massive setback, especially in contrast to the amount of momentum and motivation that you had going into that moment, right? And what happened with your team was that they were there in person. They were in terms of they were there and present for you to provide support when you needed it, but they gave you sufficient space to be able to step away and address what needed to be addressed personally, internally, for you to process and kind of stabilize yourself a little bit, right? And I think that's a really good example of how passionately we react, emotionally to these kind of stimulus, especially in the context of injury.
When you really love something, like whatever, everybody has different goals, everybody enjoys things, and I love strongman, I really do. And when that was taken away from me, it was just like someone stabbed me in the heart, and I was like, I can't do it. It was really bad. When something that you love and something that you're passionate about and something that you really love doing gets taken away from you is horrible. And you know what's funny? Because say if I turn around today and say, right, I'm done with strongman, fine, I'll cope with it better. But if someone takes it away from me and is out of my control, it will really break you. It really will break you.
Right, because it's that, again, that concept of autonomy, you losing something that you desperately hold on to and that you love and that resonates deeply with a part of you that feels the most alive when you are doing that thing. And to lose it prematurely or in a way that you were not expecting to is I use the word trauma to describe it, because it is like a separation
It
or
is some
some.
sort of trauma. That's true.
Right. And not only that, but it's especially when it's in conjunction with an injury, which I think is most athletes' worst fear. You have that simultaneous physical loss, the physical pain, and being able to confront or not being able to confront the fact that your body isn't able to do what it was moments before, and the fact that you have lost your autonomy with regards to lockdown and where that's put your training. That's a hell of a lot to go through at any time, especially though when you were feeling so positive and so motivated beforehand.
But you know what? I think sometimes when you're on the rise and you feel brilliant, I think you need a knockdown sometimes. I really believe it. I feel like you really need a knockdown which will ultimately make you even more stronger than you originally were. Like this knockdown with the injury has taught me a load of things. It's made me put more focus on other things that I've not been doing so far, which is probably why it led to the injury I got. Things like stretching, warming up properly. It's now implemented. I try to do it on a daily basis without fail, and this will then take me to the next level again. Make me a better athlete. And you do need a knockdown sometimes, because it's taught me a lot of things, especially start to appreciate the small things. I got a roof over my head, I got a glass of water, I've got a job, I'm healthy. Little things like this where we need to learn to appreciate more. And at the end of the day, we're just athletes. We pick stuff off the ground and we put it back down. And there's a lot more other important things to it, than just that. So I've definitely learned to appreciate the little things a lot more, and I think that's going to make me a bigger, better, more dangerous athlete, because I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from this.
Right, absolutely, and truly, like when you suffer, again, we
Sure.
use that word of trauma. When you suffer and you understand what it's like to lose something, what it's like to lose something you love,
Oh, that's for sure.
think in those moments are better, better prepared and better able to acknowledge why it was that thing meant so much to you, and to potentially, as you say, to diversify some of that energy elsewhere to other aspects of your life in which it's also present, right? Like you say, simple gratitude, the things that you may take for granted sometimes, but in fact you do attach a lot of importance to, like having a job and having your health, right? And then when that thing comes back, you're able to attach yourself to it again and create that energy with less of the fear of loss behind it.
I think like we mentioned before, when you learn to control your mind and and learn to control your mind and control your fears, that's when you become a very, very dangerous person, you know, very dangerous athlete. Because when you control the mind, you control the body, and you can achieve a lot of great things with that.
Definitely, man, definitely, and especially with regards to injury, because there is so much there that is, of course, undoubtedly physiological, but then how one processes that injury, how the attachments you associate with what you've experienced can be what makes or breaks your return to, training at full capacity. Because if you do dedicate the time to the rehabilitation process physically, you will recover, right? But
You
the
know,
mental
I
side,
think, yeah, I think I would have recovered a lot faster if I'd actually, if I'd listened properly, to my coach and listened to my chiropractor, and I didn't. I thought, well, it's just a minor injury. I'll get over it. I'll be all right, no problem. But yeah, it's funny because after the injury, I went on and tried like, oh, so silly. I don't even know why. That it wasn't even in my plan. But I went to, that's when your ego kicks in, and your ego kicks in, and then you try and do silly things because you have an entourage around you. And I remember going to a place, and there was a lot of guys around. A lot of guys were training. I thought, well, I'll do my thing. And I went and I tried like a 450-kilo yoke with an injury in my back. I was just like thinking about it now. I was like, so stupid. Why did I even do that? But and then I went to do a stone run, a really heavy stone run. And I was thinking, why did I do that? And I remember after doing those things, my injury got even worse. And yeah, I don't know why I did that. But when you have that entourage around you and you have that ego because you have to show everyone else that you're stronger, and it was terrible. I don't know why I did that. But yeah.
right? But again, it kind of going back to what you were saying a little bit earlier, having to suffer through that injury and being in a position where no matter how much your ego or this part of you that needs to prove itself and to push in front of others, right, plays out, inevitably you can't sustain that because of this injury. So even in that, there is this important question which you're asking, right, which is, why did I do that? Seems absolutely crazy to you, right? Why would I possibly do a 450 yoke when I'm suffering something? But
When I'm injured, yeah.
you did do it, right? And at that moment, in that split second, there was a part of you that really needed to do that and felt that was the absolute correct decision to go ahead with it, which is
But it
fascinating.
wasn't. It was a terrible decision. It was a terrible decision. And I remember Loz after. He doesn't usually call me names, but he was like, "You're an idiot." He's like, "Why did you do that?" It was funny because like thinking about it now is funny, but at the time it wasn't.
And that's the fascinating thing, because it's easy to say, you're a moron, you're an idiot, and you shouldn't have done that, and that common sense wasn't in place. And I'm sure there are a few grounds to make that assertion. I think every lifter, and I wouldn't say I know every lifter who is watching this has had a moment like that, right? Myself included,
And listen,
undoubtedly.
if my coach watches this, he knows that I'm the kind of person who needs to be told exactly how it is. I don't need none of this lovey-dovey shit. I need to be told exactly how it is. If I'm an idiot, I need to be called an idiot and be told, "You're an idiot. You messed up. This is on you." And I need to be told that sometimes. And I hate being told that, but it helps me a lot. It really does. It's the only way I work.
Right, right. And once you're able to say, like, yeah, man, that was absolutely ridiculous, that was silly, you are an idiot, that, there's kind of phase one with the accountability is there, right? Probably not going to do that again because you suffer the consequences. But it's also fascinating the fact that in that moment there was an unsatiable need to do that, despite all logic, despite all reason, despite big laws, to do that, right? So being able to address that as well, what is it about that scenario in that moment, you, that like kind of microcosm of you in that moment, that needed to prove something, do something as silly as
I
that,
don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I think it's again part of me wanting to be great, part of me being wanting to be successful, part of me that's very hungry and wants to improve with every session. And I think it was rather than proving a point to everyone else that was there, it was more to proving it to myself that I still got it and I can still do things. But I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have done that. And sometimes I think as athletes, you make the mistakes of rushing, and you wanna overcome injuries, things. You wanna overcome them so fast, and you rush with things. And I think that was my mistake. I rushed with it. And I thought, yeah, it's fine. It's 400 kilos, whatever. Don't worry, you're fine. And it wasn't okay because it hurt me more after.
Right, and I think you made a really astute observation there with regards to why you did it, to prove to yourself that you still have it. Like if we go back to this notion of trauma and injury, one of the first stages of trauma is denial. That it's not, I'm still the way I was. This is minor. I'm going to crack on, and I'm going to prove that, and I'm going to make this my objective reality by doing such a thing. And unfortunately, and in most cases, it is denial, and it turns out not to be the case, and then you can move on
It's
to the
funny
next
because I
stage.
think I think I think us I think it's human nature. It's almost human nature. This denial part. It's human nature. We all do. I think we do it all the time. We never want to admit to things, even if we know we're wrong and we messed up. We never admit to it. We never do.
Right, and that's part of the growth and the accountability process, right? Being able to take a step back and to acknowledge, hey man, this was insanely dumb and I regret it on one hand, but I also acknowledge that there was a part of me that needed to do this in the moment, right?
You
and
know what's
and
funny?
I
It's
can.
it's funny because like maybe a lot of people when they're told what like say they're told, right, don't do this because you're gonna get hurt, or don't do this because it's going to lead to something bad. And I feel like I'm the kind of person who, even if someone tells me not to do it, I'll have to do it to mess up and learn myself and feel it myself that actually that was so dumb, that was so idiotic. I shouldn't have done that. No matter how much someone will try and protect me and tell me not to do something, I'm always going to go and do it. I don't know why. It's just in my character. I have to do it, and I have to learn it myself and experience this myself.
And then from that point, do you feel that you're capable of making the lesson learned
Oh,
and
absolutely,
acting on it?
absolutely. Once I've experienced that, and I've done it myself, and I was like, man, that was so stupid. Why did I even do that? I should have listened to my coach. Then I learned my lesson, and in my head, I've processed the right things, and I'm like, right, that's it. I'll never do that again. I don't need to do that.
Okay, I see. But if the coach themselves had told you just like outright, don't do that, what would then have happened?
It depends, because yeah, I don't know, to be honest. But a lot of times, there's been a lot of times when my coach or my chiro said not to do something, and I went to do it anyway. Because, like I said before, I almost have to prove to myself that I'm all right, I'm getting better. When in fact I wasn't. I was far from it. So yeah, it's really hard. It's a weird one.
Absolutely, man. And you know, moving back to what you said earlier, you have experienced quite a fast rise into the top level of the sport, and you
Sure.
gained a lot of momentum, right? You found yourself at one of the biggest pro competitions within 2 years, right? Um, how was that for you then, adapting to competing at such a high level so quickly?
Hey, look, you know what? I want to tell this. I want to say this to everybody, and I hope that everybody's watching. I still don't consider myself a pro. I look at myself, and in my eyes, and maybe in many people's eyes, I'm still a novice. I'm still a beginner because I've not been in the sport that long, and yeah, in my eyes, I'm still a novice, and I'm still learning. And I think probably in still a few years' time, I'll probably still look at myself as a novice because I always consider that I'll never be perfect, and I'll always have to learn something new, and I can always get better at things. But listen, being at the top and being with those guys, it was amazing. It was brilliant. Be there. The show was run brilliantly. Despite the fact of the pandemic, the COVID situation, we were really well looked after, and I think the Channel 5 guys put a great show together, and the Giants Live team put a great show together. And to be able to get a lot of us and get some of the best athletes, if not the best athletes, was just brilliant. And to be there with them, and I was like a sponge. I was like a sponge. I was sucking all the information. I was picking everybody's brains because I just want to learn. I want to learn from everybody, and I want to learn different things from everyone. I was like a sponge. I was getting all the information, trying to learn different things from everyone. But listen, everybody was friendly. Everybody was cheering everybody on. Rest in peace, Aaron Page. He helped me a lot that day. He really did. It's funny because I went into the first event, which was the max log, and It was a shaky. I think the opener was around 150. Yeah, I think the opener was 150. And 150 for me, especially at the time, because I was peaked for the log anyway. I was like, oh, it's going to be a war. It's going to be fine. But I remember picking my name out the hat, and I was like, crap, I have to go first, And I was so overwhelmed. I was so nervous, I was like, oh my god, I don't want to do it now. I just remember going to the log, and Eddie Hall was there filming, as well as Dave Warner, the referee. And I said, right, you can go. And I went to press, and I remember failing. I failed a 150, and I was like, I was done at this point. I was so worried, and I just remember hearing Colin Bryce in the crowd saying, Alex, enjoy it, enjoy it, have fun with it. And Aaron Page, I remember he shouted the same thing, and he said the same thing, and I thought, well, that's it now. Yeah, if I fell, I fell. Let's just get on with it. And I went, pressed it again, pressed it easily, But Aaron really looked after me that day. He took me over after, and he said to me, no, you need to calm down, you need to relax, you need to calm your nerves and be more relaxed. And he really did help me a lot. And I mean, in fact, the whole team and everybody there was really helpful and sorting everything out and making sure you're calm. And even though we didn't have a crowd, but the camera crew, the Giants live crew, everybody cheered for us on. It was brilliant. It was amazing.
Awesome, man. So yeah, you managed to get that kind of big competitive break, and it seems that it was a real learning experience for you as well. As you say, you were like a sponge, absorbing all of that information and what it takes to be competitive at that level. But there was also an increase in performance pressure, as is understandable given the big jump of caliber that you'd had to perform against and with. But the notion of just kind of relaxing and enjoying yourself and not taking it quite as seriously, even though understandably the pressure was on, seemed to be the golden ticket in that moment for you to do what you needed to do, if I understand that right.
Because I'll tell you one thing, I received my invite, I think it was 2 or 3 days prior to the show. I had no idea what the events were. I had no preparation. The only thing I was prepared for was the log, because that's the thing I was peaked for, and that's the thing I was aiming for. And I just went in. I thought, well, both in myself, Jack. I don't know if you met Jack before, but both myself and Jack, when we went up there, we thought, well, there's no pressure on us. I don't feel pressure because I'm not here. I knew I wasn't going to win. I had to be true to myself. I knew I wasn't going to go in and come first place or anything like that. But I went in there and I set little goals for myself that I wanted to achieve in every event. But I had no pressure, And I think when you don't have any pressure in yourself, you become a dangerous person, you become a dangerous athlete. And I think that proved it, because I remember, I think I came joint second on the log with, I think it was Jack, Paul Dwyer, and Aaron Page. I think we was all joint second on the log. And it was brilliant. It really boosted my confidence. I was like, right, well, I belong with some of the best pressers in Europe right now.
Yeah,
but
absolutely,
it was fun, man. And I think because, like I said, because I had no pressure, I had nothing. I wasn't worried about anything. I was just there to have fun and meet the guys and have a great time. Have a brilliant weekend. And I think that's why I think I surpassed my expectations in a lot of the events.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the concept of pressure is something that we talk about a lot as athletes. And a lot of people interpret that as people who are good at handling pressure are people who somehow thrive under pressure, right? In the sense that they feel the crushing weight of the pressure and somehow create, diamonds. But it's interesting that you express that despite the pressure that is undoubtedly present in the surroundings, in the the caliber of the competition, where that performance comes from is actually the absence of pressure. Taking a moment and shifting your lens a little bit and approaching it as something that's fun. It's a learning experience. It's a privilege. Something that you couldn't possibly have prepared for. So you couldn't have done any better than how you showed up on the day, because you had 3 days to prep, and that ended up leading to surpassed expectations, which in turn created a lot of positive references for you. Like you say, you hung with the best in Europe.
Without a doubt, Europe's Strongest Man is one of the most prestigious titles in the world, and it's one of the most prestigious shows that's out there, probably besides World's Strongest Man. Europe's Strongest Man's got to be out there. And like I said, I really did surpass my expectations. And I think the fact that the pressure was there, of course, undoubtedly, the pressure was there. I'm representing my country, which is an unbelievable achievement in my eyes, representing my country. So, of course, the pressure was going to be there. But at the same time, because of the caliber of the competition, the caliber of the guys, some of the best guys in the world there, I knew there was no pressure on me. I had no pressure. And I feel like that's why I surpassed my expectations.
Yeah, and speaking of representing your country, you set a national record, if I understand that
That's
correctly,
right.
on
Yeah.
the log lift, 181 kilograms.
Well, yeah.
What emotions were you experiencing when you managed to do that?
I don't know. I don't know if you watched the. Did you get to watch Europe's Strongest Man?
Oh yeah, man, definitely.
Yeah. So I just remember. I remember they put the weight on the log, and I remember they called my name out, and I remember going to the log, and I remember seeing Eddie. I remember seeing Eddie there, and he was looking at me, and I was looking right back at him, and I was just. I don't know. I pictured him as a really, really bad person. I pictured him as I don't know, something evil, something that if I don't press this log or if I don't get this way, he's gonna kill me. Or it's funny because a lot of things as a lifter yourself, that a lot of these things in your mind, they help you, they help you focus and they trigger certain things in your brain and make you lift something. And I was staring at him for so long. I remember Dave Warner asking me, like, athlete ready, and I wasn't responding because I was so, tunnel visioned on Eddie. I was like, right, that's it. And then I remember I switched on and I remember going for it. And I pressed it, and afterwards I just remember screaming and screaming and screaming. I just couldn't stop shouting. I think my reaction said it all on the camera, it was amazing. And, the whole population of Romania is over 22 million people, and to be the one person who has a national record, I think is brilliant. It's an amazing feeling. And to be able to represent your country at the highest level, it's amazing. Because I think so. I was like the first Romanian to be at Europe's. We had a Romanian competitor who did get to Worlds, but he's not done the sport for a long time, and I don't think he's ever going to come back again. But to be one of the first Romanian to get to that level was amazing. And it's a feeling that you can't really describe unless you live that moment. And it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, with regards to your mental technique before approaching the lift, it is something that you hear quite a lot from a lot of lifters. Catalyzing that moment in some a fixed memory or a specific sensation in their body. An immense anger or need to prove something or frustration or literally as simple as what you did with Eddie, just looking at
I
him
think I
and
think it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of things. The combination of having that pressure to lift that log, to reach that record. The mental side of things where you have certain things in your mind that triggered certain things and it makes you angry. Almost makes you violent. It makes you want to rip that weight off the floor. So I think it's a combination of things. And I remember because I was staring at Eddie for so long. I remember after doing a pressing away and lifting and screaming and shouting and whatever. I remember I went out to Eddie, I was like, Eddie, I'm so sorry, man. Don't take it personally. I was just zoned out. I was so tunnel vision. It was almost like I wasn't in my body. It's almost like I wasn't in my body. I was just watching myself from above. So tunnel vision.
yeah, that's really that like last description of it is incredible because it is almost as if you have accessed a corner of your subconscious and your unconscious mind that you don't find yourself walking in the rooms and corridors of in your normal day to day. And people describe that it's almost as it's like an out of body experience. It's like a spiritual experience. They don't remember the detail of it, simply this rush of emotion and sensation, right?
Well,
And
this is why, because obviously, you're asking me to describe the moment, and actually, even thinking about it is really hard to think about it and actually describe the moment because it's such a rush of emotions. It's such a rush of different things going through your head. It's really hard to explain.
well, can I ask you then, like, when words fail, one of the best ways to do that is simply to ask, what did you feel physically, in your body in that moment when you held the log above your head?
Um, when I held, okay, so, well, probably when I was approaching the log and I was ready to lift, I felt sadness, anger, violence, things that would trigger me, things that would make me go crazy and make me rip that way on the floor. But once I had that log above my head, and it's almost like, like someone sat on top of your shoulders, someone like that person jumped off your shoulder and a whole lot of weight just goes off your shoulder. That's how I felt. I felt like a whole lot of pressure went off me,
So like
and
a
happiness.
like a lightness almost. Your frame feels
Yeah, for
light,
sure.
loose.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And I mean, I think it's a phenomenal example to kind of end on, because it's a beautiful metaphor, isn't it? You've literally lifted something physically over your head, so taken a weight off your chest and pressed it above your head,
Pressed overhead,
and
yeah.
then you feel this tremendous lightness, like this, quite literally, this
A
weight has
relief.
lifted. The weight is lifted, the pressure is lifted, and the relief, and then, as you say, this massive pride and exaltation. You are now the best log lifter in your country at 22 million people, and you have that to your name. And going back to your whole ethos of legacy, that is part of the legacy that you'll leave.
Well, this, I keep saying to myself, even with this injury, it's all part of the story. It's all part of the journey. And the book is being written, man. The book is being written, and everything, all the good, the bad, the ugly, is all part of it, man. It's all part of the story.
It's awesome, man. It's incredibly inspirational. And now that we've run to the end of the segment, as you're still writing the pages for you, or where do you see yourself over the next year?
Well, look, man, the most important thing for me right now is not to rush and to recover properly. I think I'm 80% there, 85% there with my recovery, and it's only going to get better. But as it stands, main goal is to recover. I'm supposed to be competing on the 3rd of July at Fit Expo at the Log and Deadlift Championship. So I hope to see a lot of you guys there. It's going to be a brilliant show. It's going to be well run. It's going to be amazing. That's obviously if all goes ahead with this COVID situation, with the pandemic, if all goes to plan. But that's the main goal for now: recover and be able to compete at that competition. But the ultimate goal, bro. I'll be lying to you. I'll be lying to you if I wouldn't say that I want to get to World Strongest Man, reach the final of World Strongest Man. That's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate dream, and I'd be lying if I say it wasn't. Of course, it is. That's the ultimate. I want to be the strongest man on the planet, and that's where I want to get to. But that's a long time. It's a lot of time to go until that. But we're putting the graft in every day. We're putting the work in behind the scene, and the book is being written, man.
The book's being written, man, and let me just say, you can feel the desire, the intensity, the energy, and truly, man, I wish you all the best. I'm really excited to see how far you go, and I'm sure everyone who's watching this shares that sentiment. Guys, if you haven't already, check out Alex's Instagram, check out how he progresses. And I hope you've all enjoyed this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you for joining me today.
Look, once again, thank you for having me on. And, I hope everybody learns something from my story, because I hope I inspire, for me, a successful day is a day where I can go to sleep and I know that I've helped someone today. I've inspired someone today. Someone learned something. That's a successful day for me. And that sentiment, that emotion, that knowing that someone actually learned something from me and I've inspired somebody or I motivated someone, that's brilliant. That's all I need. That's all I need.
Fantastic, man.
Anybody, I'm a big ambassador on mental health, and I try and post a lot of stuff about mental health on there because I feel like it's really big, and I've been through it, and I know how dark it gets. So if anybody feels a need to ever talk to me, get in touch. Get in touch.
Awesome, man, and truly, it's a fantastic sentiment to share with everyone in the sport and outside. Especially those who are coming up in the sport and who can certainly relate to what you've experienced. And as I say, I wish you all the best going forward. We're gonna call it a day there, man. But it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Take care, and we will speak to you soon.